All right, welcome everyone to another grooving episode of Gavin Richard presents G-Boot 2786 When Doves Cry. This is an actual shirt that I got from Essence Fest for Prince, the purple one. It says When Doves Cry has a birth year 1958, 2000 to 2016, the year that he died. At the bottom is Purple Rain. We're just waiting on my guest right now, and okay, he's saying this happens in the cold. That's interesting. My guest is Garland Brown tonight. He's going to be talking to us about Prince, and we're having a little difficulties trying to get him connected. But if you saw him on Sister Nicole from Nicole's View, shout out to her. He talked about Prince, including his life, his legacy, and death, and also his accomplishments that he made throughout history, just the things that the man did. And he's going to go in depth with us talking about that. So I'm trying to get it on right now. So I apologize for that. So let me try one more time to get it. I'm going to try a couple of times to get to him. Hold on a second. Let me do this. I'm going to call him on speaker.
Please leave a message.
Okay, not answering. There he is. Hey, Garland.
Hey, man.
Hey, I got you actually on the Hangouts right now on live through YouTube. So you can't. So the problem is that when I send you the link, you don't get the link.
That's what's happening.
All
I'm
right.
not getting any email from you. No.
And it's coming. Because I'm sharing the permanent link. I put your email in, and it actually comes up. And is it in your spam? Did you check that?
Yeah, I checked spam. I checked all of it now. I didn't check the actual Hangout site. So hold on a second.
Okay.
I know one time came up to that.
Yeah. Hold on one second, Garland. All right. I got the fan on, so I want to make sure it's low so everyone can hear me. Give me a second, guys. I'm actually trying to wait till we get some more people in. If it doesn't go in, we can try and just do it on the phone. I hate to do it like that because it would have been easier to talk to Google Hangouts because everyone can hear you. So I'll try and send it to you again. Hold on.
Okay.
Okay. So okay. All right. It just said invitation posted. So that's I had your email.
Is that going through the Hangout site or just Gmail?
I think it's going through your Gmail.
Okay. Let me check one more time because this happened. Same thing happened to Nicole. Work the kinks out.
Okay. In the meantime, guys, if you got any questions for Garland, we're going to try and stick with you. Come hell or high water, let me know what you think, what questions you might have tonight. Garland, I'm going to try and share this video, too, so that other people can listen and watch to us talk about our topic tonight with Prince. So,
I'm still not getting anything here. Might have to just go ahead and try to do it like this if the sound is okay. I don't know what's going on. I'm getting email. My email is through Gmail. I hadn't gotten anything until the last email I had come through was about 2:30 this evening.
Okay. Well, do you have another email address?
Sure. Let me send it through you through Messenger.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Just send it.
I see it here. Let me get some more people. Let me get some more people in the chat room. Hold on. Let's see. No, guys, if you can hear me, let's see. Hold on a second, Garland. I'm gonna try and see if they can hear me. Guys, if you can hear me, let's see. Hold on a second, Garland. I'm gonna try and see if they can hear me. Guys, if you can hear me, I'm getting calls. Let's see. Hold on a second, Garland. I'm gonna try and see if they can hear me. Yeah, I have YouTube and I have Facebook playing, so I don't think there's an issue with the mic. So I think we can go with that. But let me send that email to you again. I'm doing this through, you know how you do it through Hangouts. So I'm trying to see if there's anybody listening and if anybody's putting anything in the chat box because it's going to go through YouTube, not through Google Hangouts. So
Okay.
Yeah. So let me hold on a second. I'm gonna send this to you, the email you gave me.
Sure.
All right. All right. Say the invitation posted. Anything?
Not seeing it.
Oh, shit.
Man, sync 9:39. I'm still not seeing it. Just kind of pissing me off here.
It's pissing me off too. Well, I sent it to your email again, the last one you gave me. So see if it says anything there.
Yeah, I'm checking it out right now. You can get all kinds of spam, but you can't get the email that you're trying to get.
So you didn't get it?
Still haven't gotten it. So that's but this is almost par. This is almost par for the course. This is almost par for the course here. This is nothing unusual. Certain folks do not like me communicating with other people.
Well, I just don't want it to mess up the. I didn't want to mess it up for anyone. I know I'm looking here; they can hear me. I just didn't want to mess it up for all of the viewers that wanted to listen to you. What I can do is this, so I won't be holding the phone. Let me try and call you. I want to see if I can call you through Facebook on my computer,
Okay.
because that might, maybe that might work. I call
Now,
you. I want to see if I can call you through Facebook on my computer,
Okay.
because that might. Actually, they can hear you. I heard the talk back. So let me.
I call you. I want to see if I can call you.
Yeah, actually, Garland, to hell with it. We're gonna roll with it like this.
It'll work.
This is fine. I think the people can hear you. So, welcome once again, everybody, to another episode of Gavin Richard Presents. If you're just tuning in, I have my friend, Mr. Garland Brown. I call him a Princeologist because he has a lot of knowledge on the late, great Prince. And as a matter of fact, it's coincidence that we're talking about this tonight, Garland. When I was at work, one of my coworkers was listening to I Want to Be Your Lover, I believe, by Prince, which was his first big hit in 1978 or 79. And we were just having this debate. It got into one thing about who was better, Michael or Prince. And I said, well, you can't really compare the two because, they're different. Although if I had to put an edge, the edge would be with Michael based off his cultural impact, but I said Prince was the better artist, just because he knew how to play like 30 instruments and he crafted his own songs, and he was also his own producer for his first debut albums. Am I not mistaken?
That's correct.
Yes.
Not only his debut albums, but for all of his albums.
For all of his albums, yeah.
Yes.
What was it? You know what his debut album was?
For You in 1978.
And how old was
Soft and Wet. He was 20 years old when his first album came out. As with Michael, they tried to make him just out of high school, but he was actually 2 years out of high school. He and Mike were the same age. I believe Mike was born in August and Prince was born in June.
Yeah, Prince was born June 7th because that's my mother's birthday.
Prince, Mike, and Madonna were all born in 1958. 1958 was a good year for music and the people who were born in that year. And all three of them had an impact with me being a child, teenager actually, that grew up in the 80s.
Yeah.
And I terribly miss Mike. I tell people all the time, all the Michael Jackson fans out there, I was and still a huge Michael Jackson fan. I love Mike. I love Janet. I love the Jackson.
Yeah.
But Prince was my big brother. I got to be very close to Prince and his music. I identified with Prince's music, even as I was too young to understand some of it in the beginning, because my sister was a big Prince fan coming out.
So did you meet Prince? I have to ask.
I've met Prince. I didn't formally meet him, but in the basement of the Municipal Auditorium in Nashville, spoke to him, and he had a way of throwing up the brother head nod, and you know how brothers see each other and they do each other with the head nod.
Yeah.
And I gave him that and saw him again the last time I was in concert. I had a habit of the last couple of times that he was in Nashville. I am located right outside of Nashville. Last couple of times in Nashville, I had the privilege of being in close proximity to him on the front row. And the last time he was in Nashville, which was a memorable night, one of the greatest nights of my life, we were in at the wheel call window at the arena in Nashville, and my wife was not expected to be on the front row, and so the front row tickets was at the wheel call window, and we went in to get tickets at 3:30 that afternoon. And she was like, why are we here so early? We're here too early. I said, no, I want to go in because I want to hear the sound check if they playing. And sure enough, they were. But Prince was on a golf cart riding around the arena. And it was funny because he was riding, and it was two people on the back, and they looked like they were scared because he was just driving this thing real crazy. And he comes by and almost like he was going to run into us and kind of pulls back, and my wife was freaking out behind that. It's one of the great nights of my life, going to see Prince, and actually he was like picking with us a little bit because we were on the front row, and he saw my wife again, and he kind of like, you know, came up to her and started playing a little bit. So he was like, yeah, I saw you earlier. You know, I scared you. And he was a prankster and had a bad time. I think Mike and Prince, Mike was a victim of some of Prince's pranks as well.
I've heard those stories.
Yeah.
Maybe you can confirm this. I heard that Prince actually beat Michael Jackson in ping pong real bad, and Mike didn't like him because of that. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah. And they said another time.
So that was true?
Later on, yeah, that's a true story. Mike went to his home. The Jacksons used to invite black stars to their home. As far as I'm concerned, I believe this is the ping pong story came from that first time he was there. And Prince was out there. I think it was right after maybe Controversy or around Controversy, Dirty Mind era, and Prince and Mike was in ping pong, and he beat Mike in his ping pong game and kind of destroyed Mike out there in the ping pong and some of the other brothers. They say it was kind of funny because he was hitting on Reba. They said Prince was really
flirting with Reba
real bad. Yeah.
Yeah, but Reba was married.
I know. Yeah, it didn't make any difference.
No, it didn't. That don't make any difference anymore.
No, a lot of people, you know, the thing with Prince and his character in the beginning, in which he carried himself as androgynous, whatever you want to use it, but Prince was a womanizer to the max,
right?
With his little short self. But it's actually funny. In another story that I've heard about Prince and Mike is the last time they actually was together, he found out Mike was in this club that he was in.
Right, I heard.
And he went up to him and played the bass
in front of him,
giving him the funk face, and Mike was like, "Why is he messing with me all the time?" But,
yeah, Chris Tucker was there. Chris Tucker talked about it in his stand-up set. He's like, Prince walked up to Michael with the guitar and said, "What are you doing here, monkey boy?" or something like that. I don't.
Yeah, when Prince had, but the thing about it is that as musicians, I think they were the only two. Mike had the notoriety, and I think Prince got pissed off at that, especially around 1987 when Prince proved himself to be an equal to Mike. With Purple Rain, when Purple Rain came out, Prince proved himself to be an equal. The difference is that Mike's management made sure that they were going to get Mike at least 5 #1 hits off his album. Prince,
off of Bad, right?
Off of Bad, off of Thriller, off of whatever album Mike put out.
Right.
Mike's management and his record company ensured that they were going to get the maximum amount
of money, of
money, value, etc. off of Mike, which in turn he deserved. Okay, I don't ever want anybody to think that I don't want to give Mike his props, because when you look at the state of music now and you go back to that time period, you know, yeah, we know both of these dudes were great and greater than great. The next best thing to James Brown and Ray Charles and them that we could have seen in our lifetime
was Michael.
I'm blessed every day. And I'm a teacher. I tell my kids one day, at least 1 or 2 days a week, the kids are gonna hear some Michael Jackson, Prince, and I tell them, I say, you guys have music that's telling you, bitch, hoe, killing. I'm on Percocet. I'm on this. We didn't have that. We had happy music. We had music telling us to treat people right and to love each other, love a girl, love a boy. We had that type. We didn't have music telling us to do stuff to each other. And I think that's major. A lot of people missing the point with our music today, man. They have weaponized our music against black people. We had Prince and Michael Jackson, and nobody can ever say that those two men right there ever tried to hurt the black community. They lifted us up every opportunity they had. Every opportunity they had.
Yeah. We were talking, like I was saying, I was talking with my coworker about that. We talked about the impact, and he said Prince was the first. I said, no, Michael. Because when MTV started, and Garland, you know this because you grew up, you're a little older than me. I was born in '86. So Michael Jackson was already the biggest celebrity, the biggest star, probably most famous person walking the earth. I don't think he had a rival, maybe Muhammad Ali, but he was basically at that time the hottest thing. And Prince was was up there too. But Michael, when he did MTV, as you know, MTV had a color bar. In 1981, when they debuted, they did not play black music videos, and Miles Davis called them out for it. I saw Rick James call him out, and even David Bowie called them out. And had it not been for the head of CBS, Walter Shetnikoff, he told MTV that if they did not put Michael Jackson's Billie Jean video on heavy rotation at MTV, he would pull every artist that they had at Epic. And finally, MTV relented. And then when Billie Jean came on, then it opened the door for everybody. Because then Lionel Richie gets, Prince does 1999, and then Lionel Richie comes in, and I think Prince's record label, Warner Brothers, they threatened MTV the same way, if I'm not mistaken. So
yeah, the story on that goes that Mike premiered like early that morning, and I think at noontime, Prince's 1999 premiered. It was real close together.
Do you remember watching that at that time?
No, because where I live, we did not have MTV until 1983, and it was on cable, and everybody didn't have cable.
Right.
So we were watching a show that premiered in '83 on NBC, which was a show called Friday Night Videos. And Friday Night Videos actually came on from like '83 until about '93 or '94 before it went off. But that was our medium in getting music videos until MTV came. And then even when MTV came on TV here locally, we didn't have it. So we didn't really start watching MTV. I really didn't start watching MTV until I was maybe my senior year in high school, which was 1987, 88, in which we started watching MTV then. And my parents eventually got cable.
Where was
started watching it.
What about BET? So that was still cable.
BET did not come here until 1993, and I'm going to tell you something about BET. BET premiered in Nashville, and where I live, which is called Columbia, Tennessee. It's about 45 minutes difference. It's 45 miles, and I have relatives that live in Nashville, my cousins. And when I graduated from college in 1993, that's when BET eventually came here. And my cousin, I never will forget her saying that's the worst thing that ever happened to Columbia. And that being said, it kind of took me aback when she said that. And then I started realizing why she said it. And I understood that we started seeing things on television, and black people started to emulate what they were seeing. And those things, the urban black person myth, or the urban ghetto gangster type black person, is an image that I think has been very negative toward black people. And you've probably been involved in some of the conversations that I've had about Bill Cosby and the Cosby Show.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why I fiercely defend Bill Cosby against some of these allegations and things that he has received is because he was the only person, black person, that tried to present the image of black people that I was used to seeing.
Right.
Regular, everyday black people.
Right. Because everybody didn't grow up like James and Florida Evans in the projects.
Right. Everybody didn't grow up like that. And even though I wasn't Cosby status, I was in a working class black home in the South. We were more close to the Cosbys than we were to the Evans family. Right. And, a lot of folks don't understand when a different world came out. You are younger than me, like you said. I'm going to tell you the impact of Bill Cosby, and then I'm going to get into this Prince thing. Bill Cosby came out with a different world. Came out with the Cosby Show first.
In 1984.
3 years later, a different world premiered.
Right.
A different world premiered my senior year of college. The next year, which was my freshman year in college, 1988, HBCUs had record-breaking attendance across the country. Right. My freshman class was the biggest freshman class in the history of Tennessee State University because of a different world. Right. Okay. Now I'm a TSU guy. My folks walked Tennessee State's campus for 100 years now. So I was used to Tennessee State. I was used to the HBCU experience. But I still wanted to go, and I had friends of mine I want to go to a HBCU because of a different world. And guess what? Mr. Cosby wasn't from an HBCU.
No, he wasn't. From Temple. Yeah.
And he put that on TV, man. That is one of the greatest things that ever happened because our folks, when we were able to integrate things, our people started flocking to PWIs and thinking, oh, I don't have to go to the black school no more. The black school, that's no good. And you get to the PWIs, these people mistreat you, mistreat our kids. They disrespect us and taking our money at the same time when the HBCUs are suffering. Right now, if we pooled our money together and took care of our own stuff, the HBCUs especially, we wouldn't. Just think about our football players if they played instead of playing in the SEC, playing in HBCUs. Think about them going back to Grambling and Southern University.
Well, I mean, it originally was like that. It was originally like that. I mean, Grambling actually has more NFL Hall of Famers than any other college.
Exactly.
Right. They had, I think, even one time the most first round draft picks. You're talking about Buck Buchanan and Willie Brown. I think Willie Davis, if I'm not mistaken, that went there. There's a whole bunch of them. Now, I'm a Southern graduate, so I got to shout out, Aeneas Williams and Mel Blount.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the cornerback.
The horse rancher for Sardale, Louisiana was Mel Blount. He played for my favorite football team,
the Pittsburgh Steelers. Right.
The Tennessee State Grambling, when I was a little kid, 11 years old, stood on the sidelines. And the last time Coach Robinson was in Nashville with Coach Merritt at Tennessee State University, I was on the sideline and got to meet Coach Robinson. Okay? Uh-huh. So, and sat when Coach Merritt, and he told us plainly, he said, boys, when y'all play Grambling, they're going to run the same stuff. He said, so you watch what they're doing tonight because they're going to run the same play. They've been running for the last 25 years. He would say stuff, and they were good friends like that. I don't know if you know who Coach John Merritt was at Tennessee State, but if you don't know who he is, you need to go look at him. He was a big rival to Coach Robinson.
Coach Merritt?
Coach John Merritt.
John Merritt.
M-E-R-R-I-T-T.
Okay, I'll look him up. just like Mumford, and we have Pete Richardson, who was a rival.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah. I remember. I mean, when you talk about that with Bill Cosby, I know about his impact because I remember as a kid, and even though I was born in '86, around 1989, I'm young enough to remember being 3 years old watching the Cosby Show. You know, I remember Thursday nights was pizza because Thursday nights and was pizza night at my house, and Thursday
Yes.
night we would have it would be the Cosby Show, Different World, Night Court. Uh,
Yes.
I can't think of it. I think it may have been Cheers, but
L.A. Law.
yeah, I remember watching that. Must see TV that started because of Bill Cosby. Um, and of course, eventually later on, he tried to buy NBC in 1992, and in 1993 he tried again, and he wasn't successful those times. But a lot of people speculate that the things that he's going through is a boomerang from that attempt, as well as the incident that happened to his son, which I won't get. I'll save that for another day. But yeah, definitely, he certainly had an impact. I remember the episode where Ron and Dwayne got into the fight with Dean Cain and a couple of other white college students over a racial incident. And I remember that episode, the LA riots episode that they had. So, yeah, his impact was great. But I guess getting back with Michael and Prince, well, with Prince in particular, uh, first off, what was your favorite Prince album? I wanted to ask you that.
Oh wow. No different from a lot of Prince fans. My favorite Prince album, simply because it was my senior year, the end of my junior year, beginning of senior year of high school, was Sign of the Times, 1987.
Okay.
That right there is probably my favorite, but the one that I probably listened to the most was probably Purple Rain. So it's a close 1A, 1B relationship between those two albums. And then third is an album called 1999. Fourth is an album called Parade. And most Prince fans will not differ. They'll have those four albums in close succession to each other, probably in different spots. But the Sign album was probably his most critically acclaimed album, and probably it's my favorite album. I listen to it at least maybe 4 times a week.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah. You have the vinyl, or you have it on your phone?
I got the vinyl. I have it on phone. I've got it on CD. I've got it,
Yeah.
The videos. I've got the concert film. Yeah, I got all of it. The album cover is probably his best album cover. He probably had the best collection of songs from it. That era of time. Hopefully, when this documentary series comes out, they will introduce you guys to Prince in a way that you have not been introduced to him. Because, and this is one criticism that I had of him and had when he was living, is that he was trying to get so much music out. It was so much music coming out of him that he did not give his record company. And it's bad for me to say this because some Prince fans will probably try to get me on this, but he really didn't give his record company time enough to actually saturate the market and properly saturate the market with his music.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that they're trying to do after his death, sadly enough, because now they're trying to exploit him for money. But he truly was not interested in the money and in the notoriety as he was in trying to get music out. He had jazz, he had blues, he had funk, he had rock. He had pop. He had all of those things in him, and he was constantly trying to get that music out to people so they could enjoy it. And it's still things that he did in the 80s that it'll catch me one day and I'll just hear the music now because I'm older and I understand what music is. And I'll just have a jaw-dropping experience listening to his music from 30 years ago, 35 years ago.
Right.
Mike did not put that many albums out.
Yeah.
He had music, but he didn't have an album every year. Prince had an album every year from 1984 until maybe 1997.
And that was around the time he was going through his dispute with Warner Brothers.
Yes.
Right. Well, Michael, I'm glad you brought that up too. I think the other factor with Mike was his deal with Sony. You know, remember he was at that point where he was calling Tommy Mottola the devil and how Sony mistreats artists. And, you know, he said the next album he was going to put out basically was like a collection of old music that he did. It was like it probably been like a best of like how History was, because History included concluded a few new songs, which I don't think a few of them didn't break the top 10, maybe with You Are Not Alone and They Don't Really Care About Us. I'm sorry. Yeah, there were some that did, but there was, you know, a mixture of old music as well that he had. But I could tell you my favorite, and this is your interview, but my experience with Prince, just briefly, I've never met Prince, but when he came to New Orleans for Essence Fest in 2014, I was studying for the state bar exam. And around that, you know, they tell you when you study for the exam, the law is a jealous mistress. That's what we've heard all throughout law school. And you had to give it 100% and you didn't have time for everything. So this was the 4th of July weekend, and the bar exam was coming up July 21st through the 25th or something like along those lines. And I was debating whether or not I should go see Prince or should I take the bar exam, because if I fail, I'll get I have 4 other tries and then that's it. In Louisiana, you can only take it 5 times and that's it. And I said, well, you know what? I'm just going to probably fail it because I'm going to see Prince. And I did, and he put on a show. He chose the cast, the musicians that were going to perform that night. It was Janelle Monáe, it was Niles Rodgers with Cheek, and then Prince was the headliner. And he came out in both of their performances playing guitar and would hide. And when nobody at first saw him until Janelle Monáe was doing a cover of Let's Go Crazy, at the very end when there's a guitar solo, he was doing it. And the cameraman put the picture of Prince up there playing the video of it, and everybody just went nuts. So, and I'm sitting in the nosebleed sections with my folks. I was glad I took them because they never saw Prince, and had I not taken them, they would never gotten a chance to. So,
great.
But and I did pass the bar exam anyway that year too. So
awesome.
Yeah, so I was determined to see that. But yeah, at any rate, I've heard that it's valued. I'm reading online that there's a fight over Prince's $200 million estate that could go on for years. Boyce Watkins, I know we've talked about him before. He has stated that Prince's attorneys have been milking his estate, like he owes somewhere between 35 million or 40 million. So it's almost 75, and these are 2 separate bills. Do you know anything about, the milking of his estate or what's going on with that?
Yeah, let me kind of go into some of that right now.
Okay.
Prince died. There is a story, and I said story for a reason, that he didn't have a will. And I'm going to get into that a little bit later. But Prince died, no will was found. And you being a lawyer, you understand that is a very important business maneuver.
Yes.
Someone with that type of money, should have had a will. And he did have one, by the way. But no one has been able to find this will. So the family, it went through a big thing, kind of sort of like the guy from New Orleans. I can't think of his name, but he sung a song, "I Put a Spell on You," and they put in the newspaper down there for everybody who thought they was a child of his to show up somewhere. Something they found out he had like 50 something.
About Screaming Jay Hawkins.
Screaming Jay Hawkins is who it was. But they did something similar to that with Prince, and it took, because of the outlandishness of things like that, folks will claim that they're a child and they show up, and you know, you got to go through that legal process of determining who was and who wasn't relatives. And after it was determined that Prince didn't have any living children, that it then went to his siblings, which I had a huge problem with, but that's the law.
Right.
And his brothers and sisters, Prince had a very complicated family.
Right.
Meaning Prince's father was married before Prince's father and mother got married, and had a family. There were at least 4 siblings that came out of this union, and a 5th sibling that came, a 5th person, I'm going to call it, that Prince claimed as a brother because his father claimed him as a son, even though the woman had a baby out of wedlock with another man. So that child, I'm not going to mention their names because of legalities, but that family there, they had to determine whether or not this was a child of Prince's father, and they determined that it wasn't. Now, this sibling was dead, so then it went to his children and grandchildren, which they posed a significant legal battle because of an individual who was the lawyer for this deceased sibling and another deceased sister of Prince's that sued him. Okay? So they held it up for a number of months. And then it went to hit Prince's mother's children. And it was a brother that Prince had that was older than him, that was by his mother and not his father. And I don't even think, from stories that I've heard recently, that his mother never actually raised this child. This child was raised in Louisiana with grandparents or something.
Right, and that's another thing. Prince's people, not to interrupt you, but I have to speak on this. Prince's family is from Louisiana, his father and mother. They have...
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it was Prince and a sister named Tyka, and they were full-blooded siblings between Prince's father and mother. And then Prince's mother divorced Prince's father and had a child by a gentleman who some people claim is the father to the first child. It gets so complicated. It's ridiculous. It sounds like, what were y'all doing? You know, but it got to the point where it's like 6 or 7 people involved all together that the courts eventually claimed were heirs of Prince. So then you...
Garland?
issue of Prince State, or what they call the estate of Prince Rogers Nelson, and then the siblings. And it's been a battle going on between what record company was going to get the music. One sibling didn't want one thing to happen, and it's still a big long mess because you don't have people on one accord.
Right.
Okay. Someone should have gotten to that family and said, look, you guys, this is what you need to do. And if you don't do it, you're going to lose money. Now, Prince's older siblings are in their 70s. Okay. These are not spring chickens here that we're talking about. And then his youngest brothers and sisters, they're in their mid to late 50s now. So you got, it's just a prolonged mess. And all the while, these legal bills are piling up. And they eventually going to milk the estate. The estate is, these people are not going to get a dime. Now, that being said, Prince probably wanted it like that. Now, I don't think he wanted his money to be wasted in the state to get it. When Prince died, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, of course I have.
Bruce
Yeah.
Wayne dies.
Yeah.
When Bruce Wayne dies, and they turn his home into an orphanage.
Right.
I kind of saw that happening for Paisley Park. Instead of them going and pulling this Graceland and pulling this farce with a celebration and all these Milli Vanilli band members getting up here singing his songs, and which is something that he would turn over in his grave if he had one to see, and the exploitation of his name, and people who haven't sung in 30 years actually getting up pretending like they was long lost friends of his. It's the most sickening thing I ever seen in my life. Because there's a lot of grieving fans. The Prince base did not have a means of grieving like Mike did. Okay?
Yeah.
Michael Jackson fans, we had a funeral for Mike. I sat there and watched the funeral crying for 3 hours.
Yeah.
We didn't get to do that with Prince. Okay? And Prince didn't want a funeral. He didn't want all of that. That was the type of person he was. But he said his music should speak for him. We should have had something for Prince other than what we got. And that's something because of the family not being on the same accord, because of certain family members not having contact with Prince for over 20 years. They couldn't have got together and tried to do that.
Right.
And Prince's sister, I don't want to speak evil of her, but I think that she didn't know what to do. And I think that some people kind of say, well, you need to do this because of his religion. We're going to do this right here. Now, I do understand that his religious beliefs, he belonged to the Jehovah's Witness. They had a beautiful ceremony for him, but we didn't get to see it.
We didn't have anything.
The fans didn't see it.
Right. You didn't have anything like Michael where his body is placed in the Staples Arena and Staples Center and all of these different celebrities. And don't get me wrong, I think a few of them were fake, but
yeah. It's
yeah. Yeah, because
now I think this is very important here, because I want to go into the reason why I think you brought me on here was to discuss Prince's death.
Right. Before we get into that, let's just get into what lead up to that. I do want to mention something. Let's see. When another thing that Prince, I don't think, liked that you mentioned in things that he didn't want to do, he was a very private person. Now, I wanted to tie in, though, something that was brought to my attention through what I've been reading, what's happening with Michael. And obviously, you know about the Neverland documentary. Well, it's more of a mockumentary, Leaving Neverland, that Wade Robinson and James Safechuck allege abuse by Michael for over these number of years. And it's come out that they've given so many lies that HBO has even had to stop playing the documentary on their channel. They've pulled it. But the rumor was Michael's niece, Brandy, was dating Wade Robinson. And Wade Robinson cheated on Brandy with Britney Spears. Because at one point, Wade was a songwriter, and I was looking this up. He actually wrote songs with Justin Timberlake. And as you know, Justin Timberlake, he's a supposed Michael Jackson fan, and he had that Super Bowl with Prince that a lot of people didn't like that he did because Prince didn't like virtual performances. I want to ask you about that, but I've also heard, and this is where I'm getting up to, is that while he not only dated Britney, he supposedly had an affair with Prince's wife Mate. Is that something you've heard?
That's correct. That's very correct, and it's also the reason. Well, I'm going to say this: Prince wasn't an angel as far as all of this is concerned.
Right.
Okay, uh, he was his daddy's son, and he liked women. And Maite supposedly had a relationship with this guy, and cheated with this guy while Prince was gone. And I think he may have been in Spain at the time when this was going on, but that is allegedly true. I've heard that from multiple sources now, and it was the reason why Prince wrote a song to Maite. I wrote a song about her that is released on an album called Rave Unto the Joy Fantastic, which is called I Love You, but I Don't Trust You Anymore. And Rave was re-released, so if anybody wants to try to go out and find that song, it was re-released and it's out now. They re-released it back in April, and but that was the reason why they eventually split up. And she alleges Prince was womanizing as well, which I don't have any doubt that he was, because he was his daddy's son. And
right. I mean, he's Prince.
He was Prince. She knew who he was when she
right.
married.
Right. Women. Change. Right. Well, I mean, when you're a celebrity like that, we look at Sam Cooke. You look at Otis Redding and James Brown. All women threw themselves at those men, even with Bill Cosby. So it's not a surprise, even though they may have been that they were married, that they had children out of wedlock or they had numerous affairs. So, and Prince being who he was, he was one of the most famous people who walked earth. Even Ali had affairs. Muhammad Ali, he loved women. Yeah.
It's no doubt that there was some things going on, but that Prince Maite relationship shouldn't have never occurred.
And she she released a book too about how they met, and I read a little. I didn't read the book obviously, but I saw Daily Mail, the news, and it talked about how they met when she was a teenager, and it looked like they're kind of trying to throw Prince under the Me Too bus.
Yeah, they was trying to get it. They were, and see, this is another thing here that I'm going to get into a little bit later on. You have to watch how these cover stories pop up all of a sudden, and they try to create this narrative before they spring a whole lot of googly gop on people. Prince, this girl was supposedly introduced to Prince when she was probably about 13 years old by her mother. And then again, when she was 16, she was doing some dancing somewhere, and her mother introduced him and her again. And I think she brought him to him again when she was about 17. And then when they turned 18, he put her in the band. So it's alleged that some things occurred. She said that nothing occurred until after she was 18. I don't know if it did or didn't. I do know that as far as R. Kelly, I'm going to throw him in there as well. It's something it bothers me when parents try to pimp their kids out.
Right.
And not necessarily when I say pimping, I'm not necessarily talking about pimping in the form of sex. But I want you to be famous so bad that I'm going to just throw you out there and hey, I'm going to exploit you in any way I can because you're my meal ticket. A lot of people in Hollywood, and I think something needs to be done. If Me Too was really about being on the job of preventing sexual exploitation, one of the things I think they should be really focusing on is how children in Hollywood and in the entertainment industry has been mistreated by parents, not only in a sexual fashion, but in the fact that they was just put out there to work like dogs. And you know, we hear all the stories about Joe Jackson, whatever, this, that, and the other. But that's the typical thing. Gary Coleman went through some stuff. Macaulay Culkin went through some stuff. All of those kids that
I think Gary Coleman's wife,
stuff, man.
Yeah, Gary. Even the way Gary Coleman died was suspicious. Yeah,
very, very suspicious.
Because he fell with his wife at that time. All of that was going on. I think she may have had something to do with it because she pulled the plug on him quick.
Exactly. Another thing to really highlight this, and this goes all the way back to 1972, which is, if you ever have a chance to get to see the Godfather expanded edition of Godfather, where they take all three movies and combine them.
Right, I have that. The Godfather saga. Yeah, I have that.
Right. If you look in that movie, it's a scene in that movie with Waltz, the movie mogul, has a little girl in his house, and the little girl's mama is living in that house with them, in which is implying that he's doing something to this girl, because you see her after he makes this big thing about the reason he's not putting that guy in his movie.
Donnie Fontaine.
Exactly. And if you watch that, it's like, oh, okay, this is what they were doing. And it's stories way worse. If you really go into it's a book I read a long time ago called Hollywood Babylon. If you read about some of the stuff that Judy Garland and some of these other people went through, man, it'll have you in tears. Yeah. And it makes the stuff that we're hearing about like tame in comparison. Which
you have the
stuff right.
Right. Well, you have the documentary Open Secret that talks about these Hollywood executives that basically have run a pedophile ring. And you saw that with the director of X-Men, Bryan Singer. The only thing who got in trouble, the only thing with Bryan Singer is that he's white and he's not going to lose his money anytime soon. He's not going to be treated like how Bill Cosby or R. Kelly is being treated. Obviously,
manipulating constitutional law, trying to get people. Man, it's the sickest stuff I ever seen in my life.
Right. And then speaking of which, Corey Feldman even said that, who his molesters were, and the one person he said never molested him was Michael Jackson, but now he's kind of gone back and forth with it, where he's saying, well, he probably was grooming me. I don't know if I was his type and all of this stuff. If you don't have nothing to say about the dead, like my mom used to say, it's best not to say it at all.
Right, because they're not here to defend themselves.
Right. Well, not even the dead. If you don't have nothing nice to say, don't say it at all. You don't know for a fact. And nobody knows what happened in that room. And frankly, Michael was acquitted. There was a trial. He was raided by he was raided by a sheriff's department 5 times. The FBI had a 10-year investigation into him, and they couldn't find anything on him. And, personally, I think it had to do with his music publishing, why they were doing that. And I think that's the reason why he's dead, which now let's get into why I had you on. Well, part of it was to have you on here was to talk about Prince's death, because you suspect there was some foul play with that when you were on Nicole's channel. But if you can lead in, we can remember that before Prince died that same year, he had a loss of a loved one as well, which was Vanity. Vanity had died, I believe, that February, if I'm not mistaken, and Prince died in April.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and well, you want to go ahead and take it from here? Sure.
Let me go in and kind of prep everyone, because I'm gonna prep you on some Mike. And Tariq Nasheed, in the middle of probably, I want to say it was September, October last year, Tariq Nasheed posted a long Twitter rant about Russian mob extortion on certain black entertainers. And it was going back into the 90s and talking about certain suspicious things that happened to black entertainment figures.
Like Bill Cosby.
Like Cosby and his son's death. You mentioned that earlier. like Eazy-E's mysterious AIDS, death. And we know by history what the COINTEL program was all about. And I made mention of that because COINTELPRO is still going on. And one of the goals of the COINTELPRO program was to discredit any black group, any black person who started to obtain a leadership position in the black community, and that the masses of people, not only black people, because it gave out instructions to discredit those people to first the white community, then to the black community at large, and then to the black peer group of that individual or group. So when you start to look at history and you start looking at our entertainers, especially Michael Jackson, they started messing with Mike around the time after We Are the World. And Mike called together the We Are the World people together. This was a seminal music event, okay? And I want everybody to remember that, keep that in the back of their minds, because I'm finna fast forward, jump off mic and go into Prince. Prince was discredited with the movie Under the Cherry Moon. And I always said Prince had a white female lead in that movie. And I always said the movie was funny, but it was campy. Prince tried to take the director, or be the director of the movie, so to speak. But it wasn't any worse than some of the other things that I've seen over the last 30 years. It wasn't the best thing I've seen over the last 30 years either, but I liked the movie. It was funny. But he was discredited in that movie. And with the lead single off that album, which was Kiss. Kiss hit #1. The movie comes out, and he had the lead follow-up single to Kiss was Mountains, which is one of my favorite songs ever. Mountains didn't crack the top 20. Okay? And then the last two songs off the album, I don't even think they hit top 40. So they discredited him with that movie. Even though he came back with Sign of the Times, he didn't have another #1 song until probably 1989 when he came out with the Batman soundtrack. Prince only had 5 #1 singles.
I remember that. I remember when 1989, that was Bat Crate Mania, because everybody had the Batman cereal, the Batman toys. Yeah, I remember I remember he was doing Gemini. He was basically half Prince, half Joker.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which was a very interesting mix right there. But Prince didn't have the #1 songs like Mike did. Prince had a #1 song for a top 10 song. He broke a record. I think he had a top 10 song 11 years straight. But back to the story about Prince. And then you get into the war with Warner Brothers, in which Prince, the claim was Prince tried to put out material and Warner Brothers didn't want that material out, and they limited his output. The real story to that was Prince signed a contract in 1992, and that contract was, it was a poison pill built into the contract, in which he had to literally sell 5 million albums before he made any money off the album. And then Warner Brothers started, it was some real interesting things that occurred between 1993 and 1995, in which Prince was taken from the pop side of Warner Brothers, and he was put in the R&B side of Warner Brothers. So you have a multi-genre spanning artist, one of the top artists in the history of music, and you relegate him and put him in the R&B department. That's the equivalent of taking and cutting off at least 75% or even 50% of his fan base in marketing and in sales, etc., etc. So they basically put him in R&B solely to limit the sales that he was going to get off of his album. So that was the reason why you started seeing Prince in 1993, 94, 95, 96 drawing slave on his face.
I'm on the phone. Oh, you can come in. Oh, I'm sorry, Garland. Hold on.
Yeah, no problem. You got the same thing I got. That's the reason why I'm in the car right now. But but they limited Prince's output. As a result of that, this caused a problem. And Prince wanted out of that contract. And he left the contract in 1996. He still had, I believe it was 4 albums left. And Warner Brothers he was giving Warner Brothers old material to put out compilation albums, so forth and so on. And I want to even say that the last greatest hits album that he put out, which was Prince Forever, that was released shortly after he died, was a part of that contract. I'm not sure, but I'm getting lost in time, so to speak, in regarding some of that output. Now, Prince had some interesting record deals. He had one with Arista, which is the rave album that Clive Davis couldn't even get to sell because of some of the complications in the music world as far as the hatred toward Prince. It was some people out to get Prince. They was making sure that Prince's albums didn't sell. They was making sure that he was not getting his albums into Walmart and to the box stores, because when Walmart bought albums, I don't know if you know anything about CopyScan, but Walmart, when they started doing CopyScan, that had a big benefit to people like Michael Jackson, because Walmart would buy 3 million copies off the top.
Right.
That was automatic 3 million sales. So Prince started getting into things like, okay, well, since you're going to do that, I'm going to say that when you buy a ticket to my album in 2004, Musicology, when you buy a ticket to my concert, I'm going to give you a free album. And that right there made Musicology his first #1 album in probably a decade or longer, because of the way he marketed that album. And they shortly stopped anyone from trying to do that ever again. Because when he played at the Superdome for the Essence Festival in 2004, I believe he had 40,000 to 50,000 people that he just automatically gave an album to, and they counted it in with the ticket sales. So the record industry is a corrupt thing, and they want to make sure that they get the most bang for their buck. Okay.
Right. Just to point out, I'm glad you brought up just right quick reference in 2004 Essence Fest. Here's a funny story. Prince actually kicked out the Ronald McDonald mascot because he didn't like clowns. But yeah. Well, McDonald's sponsors Essence Fest a lot, so it's not uncommon to see them out there. So he basically told the Superdome managers, either I go or the clown goes, and by clown.
Wow. Anyway, let's get to the last couple years of Prince's life. In 2014, Prince announced that he was returning to Warner Brothers, and that they were going to release Purple Rain Deluxe 30th anniversary of Purple Rain. It was going to be a remastered version of the Purple Rain album, along with another album's worth of unreleased music by Prince that went in that time period. The songs, the B-sides. And that's another thing about Prince that a lot of folk don't know, is that his B-sides to his albums were legendary. Okay? And they got to be almost as good as the single that was released. And I know for me, that was one of the big pluses to being a Prince fan. Was like, what's his B-side gonna be? But his B-sides to his albums was released on there. But he also had 2 other albums that he released at the same time. That one of them was a straight Prince album, and another one was a rock and roll album. And the straight Prince album, I like both of them, but the straight Prince album probably is one of the best R&B albums of the century. People went to sleep on it; they didn't get it, kind of got lost in the shuffle because we don't buy albums anymore. And we live in the MP3 era and the streaming music era, in which streaming music, if you saw this past week about Pharrell, I think they say he may have gotten $600 being streamed 1 million times from someone. That shows you how these artists are getting ripped off nowadays. But something strange happened in 2014 after that announcement. The Prince fans were really looking forward to the Purple Rain 30. Purple Rain 30 never shows up. So in late fall of 2015, Prince started. A lot of people don't know Prince was on the computer all the time. He was tweeting. He had a Facebook page. He had multiple Facebook aliases. He was catfishing people. It was really funny. And he was also going to chat rooms and the infamous Prince.org webpage, which has threads and threads and threads of Prince subjects. He was on there all the time. So we get to in 2015, someone called Prince on Twitter one night, and it was several people because I remember when it popped up. We were asking him. Somebody came out and asked him, what happened to Purple Rain 30 or Purple Rain Deluxe? And he tweeted back, go ask Warner Brothers because they have the album. And all of a sudden we started firing off questions, and he would hit and answer some of those questions. But a couple of days later, he threw a whole lot of stuff out there about the fact that he gave Warner Brothers the music and they didn't really want to pay him for this new album of music, which was the songs that wasn't released with the album at that time. And he wanted to be compensated for his music.
Well, absolutely.
If they weren't going to do it, if they were not going to do it, then he can keep it in the vault. A couple of months later comes Moline, April of 2016, and like you said, Prince decided for whatever reason, and I've heard multiple stories about this. Prince wanted to do a concert in which he called it a piano and a microphone,
right?
In which it was going to be him unplugged, and he was going to play on the microphone, and it was just going to be him and a microphone in the concert.
Right.
And from all accounts, what I've heard, each one of those concerts was priceless. And in the midst of this happening, his girlfriend and the person a lot of people said it was his main love of his life was Vanity, Denise Matthews. And Vanity passed away during that time. A lot of people don't know that Prince was secretly paying for her medical bills. Yeah. She became a minister, and she should have been in Purple Rain, and because of her addiction, she became addicted to cocaine, and I believe that was one of the reasons why Prince they had a falling out about that.
Yeah.
And Prince did not like drug use amongst his band members. He would get rid of you for that.
I'm glad you brought that up because I saw recently. I got to interrupt you, Garland. I did see recently.
Sure.
George Clinton, legendary George Clinton. He knew Prince well. He said the Prince he knew, he said, was not into drugs. So the idea of him doing a drug overdose didn't make sense. But yeah,
it didn't. Prince and this drug thing here. And I'm going to lead that up into what happened with him with the last concert in the last 2 weeks of his life. Prince, it became widely known or rumored amongst his fan base that he had a hip condition as far back as the early 2000s. The first time I heard anything about it was around 2001. And this was in the internet chat rooms. Said, hey, Prince had a motorcycle accident around 1990-91. And a lot of people who did not follow Prince like I did probably never knew that. But he had a accident. And it was around the time the Graffiti Bridge movie was being filmed or something. And from what I have heard from people who were closer to him, this aggravated, and he had a problem with this the rest of his life. It is not far-fetched for me to believe that he was under a managed and controlled use of painkillers. Okay?
Right.
That's not far-fetched for me to believe at all. However, we also know that he was an herbalist, and he was trying to use herbal methods of controlling pain, controlling illnesses, etc., etc., etc. So we do know that if he did go to a pharmacological method of controlling his pain, it probably was of a last resort type of thing. I'm not going to say he was or say he wasn't, but we do know that he got sick, and it was said that he had the flu. He was sick a lot in the winter of 2016, and he had planned his piano microphone tour. He went to Australia, did a concert in Australia, came back to America, and when he came back to America, he was sick. Okay? And they said that somewhere in the transition of the crossing the Pacific Ocean or something, he took some type of sickness. And that's not uncommon. Okay? That's not uncommon at all for people to get sick after being on an airplane for 16 hours. And coming back stopped up a cold from it. So we do know that whatever was put out there, that was the story. Now, some people were saying that he was withdrawing from opioids. The people that I trust that have followed this say that they don't believe that that's what was happening. I'm not going to really get into that. That he was going to perform in Atlanta. He canceled the tour because he was sick. That had never happened before. Okay?
Right.
So when I heard that he canceled that concert, I immediately, took a gas. I was like, oh man, something's wrong. Now, I am going to tell you that for the last 10 years of Prince's life, that it was a debate going on that he needed to have hip replacement surgery. Mm-hmm. And it was rumored, well, he didn't need to have hip replacement surgery. He just did Welcome to America. He just did 3121. But anyone who had been watching Prince, especially on a musicology tour, Prince wasn't wearing his signature high heel shoes. He was in some high heel tennis shoes. But he wasn't in those high heel stacked pumps that he was wearing. He wasn't in that anymore. So it was a debate going on whether or not he was actually in his hip pain. I believe, and I was told, that he went in for a hip procedure and they found something other than a degenerative hip. Now, I'm not going to go into a lot of speculation on that, but I believe that there was something else going on with Prince other than his hip. He had just gotten old and had arthritis in his hip. Okay, that's me.
Yeah.
And I've heard that from intimate people who were closer to him, even though the autopsy report says that what caused his death was not the hip. It was the fentanyl in the pills. But anyway, Prince comes back. A week later, Prince calls the concert back on. I'm going to perform two concerts in Atlanta. And he goes to Atlanta. According to the promoter, she sees Prince, says Prince, it looks a little under the weather. You could tell he had been sick. He was kind of congested to a certain extent, and he asked for some herbal tea, and he got himself together, got up on stage, and they told me people who were there have said that they had literal chills from listening to him play that night. And they say that concert is ready to be released. I do not know if I can watch it. Okay, I personally do not know if I will be able to watch that concert. Now, 3 years later, I don't think I'll be able to watch it. He got on the airplane and said he was in a very good mood, very happy. He wanted something to eat on his airplane. He gets on the airplane and he's talking to none other than Janelle Hill. I believe that's her name, the young lady who was with Mike, getting ready for the This Is It tour. I think she was supposed to tour with Mike on that tour. She was on the airplane with him, and she said she was talking to Prince, and Prince had a look come over his face, and then he was unresponsive. They landed this plane in Moline, Illinois, which is in the Tri-Cities area, and they revive him, they say, with 2 shots of Narcan. Prince was in the hospital. He came to, he told the Hill lady that he could hear them talking and said it was so hard for him to get back. He said he was just trying to find him. He was in the dark and he couldn't find anybody. And eventually he just went to where the voices were and he found them. And that's when he was revived. And it scared him. Okay. I heard from another person who was close with Prince and was there. When he got back to Minneapolis, people were calling, what's wrong? Are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Everything's fine. I'm just trying to get myself back together again. Now, this is when the mystery starts, because the weekend before he died, the Saturday before he died, he had a Paisley Park after dark. He started opening up Paisley Park on Saturday nights for jams, parties. People were coming out there. You pay $20 to get in, and you come to the sound stage, and they had a party, whatever. And he opened it up, and he held his guitar up and said, "This is my brand new guitar I just bought, and I can't play it now." And folk were like, "Why did you just pull this guitar out and you can't play it? You have never done that before." And they said it was very strange for him to do that. He said, "Hopefully the next time you see me, I'll be able to play it." But he made a comment, says, "Don't believe everything you hear, and don't," he said, "don't waste any prayers on me for a few days or something."
He said, "Yeah, don't waste your prayers on me in a few days." I could actually pull up the tweet.
But that right there was something that was very interesting as well. A comment that he brought up that when he made that comment, and a person who knew Prince, who had business that night, told me that she kind of felt like something was wrong, and she spoke to him that night, and he said, "I'll let you know about it a little bit later on."
He says, "Thanks everybody for this was on April 17th. Thanks everybody for your extra time, and I am transformed."
Yeah, now that was a tweet from the night that the airplane landed. The last tweet that he had come out was "I am transformed," which was very strange. Now, let's speed up a day or two to the 20th of April. The 20th of April, supposedly Prince was supposed to have met with a doctor, and this physician was the physician of Prince's valet. Not gonna mention his name, but he was a former band member with Prince. And this doctor, supposedly Prince wanted to go to this doctor to find out what was wrong with him. That story has been told several different times in several different ways. Some of the people who were supposedly in Prince's inner circle says that they were trying to have a last minute interdiction, and they called this opioid specialist in California, and he rushed his son from San Francisco over to Minneapolis, and he was going to meet with Prince early that morning when they found him dead. And he was actually the person who made the 911 call to Paisley Park on April 21. Now, it's murky here what happens. We do know from the release of the investigation reports that Prince was at this doctor's office late in the evening, about 5:30 on the evening of April 20th. We see him go in, and actually the last photo that is taken of Prince is of Prince see him leaving the doctor's office. There's another video that was online of Kirk Johnson. This doctor prescribed Prince medicines. I think one of them was a Valium tablets, and another one was of hydrocodone, which is basically a Tylenol 3 vitamin. And Prince, you see Prince's valet go into this Walgreens and get these prescriptions. And the next thing you know, Prince is dead, and they're looking for Prince the next morning to take him to the doctor. Now, anyone that knew Prince, followed Prince, it was very rare that you saw Prince before 2 o'clock in the afternoon, because he was known for all-night jam sessions. When he recorded, he usually did his recordings at night. His band members had rooms in hotels that he paid for, Prince paid for these band members to, if they stayed over at this hotel and he needed them, y'all come over here, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, I need y'all to come over here so we can start recording on such and such. And they would record up to about 7 o'clock in the morning, Prince would go to sleep. This morning in particular, nobody is with Prince. Prince was just gotten off the plane. He's sick. He's supposed to be in this desperate state of withdrawal. And nobody's with Prince that night. And the first story that we heard was that last time I saw Prince, it was 8 o'clock. And I dropped him off at Paisley Park, and he went into Paisley Park, and that was it. Nobody saw him anymore until they found him dead the next morning. Then we talked to Prince's personal assistant. If you go online, go on YouTube, the interviews are there. They have the stuff online. The transcripts are online. They talked to his personal assistant. She supposedly sees Prince. They asked her, and she said, well, we were around here until about 10 o'clock, and we left.
Right.
Nobody's at Paisley Park. Paisley Park, people have tried to jump the fence at Paisley Park. You've had all kinds of crazy people up there making allegations, this, that, and the other. Paisley Park had an intricate videotaping system of security before it was popular to have intricate security detail by video. But that particular night, we have no video of Paisley Park. It was the system was there.
Right. I want to ask you this too, just to rewind for right fast. Dick Gregory, he's believed Prince has been murdered. I know Dick Greg. I knew him personally. He stated that the plane that Prince was on was owned by Warren Buffett. Do you know anything about that?
That was something I heard the same thing. the Dick Gregory. I saw that same video that brother Gregory put down. And Dick Gregory was one of my heroes, by the way.
Yeah.
I saw what he said, and I'm gonna tell you something. If Dick Gregory said something, I'm not gonna dispute what he said.
Okay.
So I'm going to go with his word on that. However, I have no way to prove it or disprove it at this point. I've not heard anything one way or another afterwards. Okay.
Okay.
I do know that it's some very interesting connections with this valet to the plane company. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say about that. Again, another thing that happened when you start checking the computer logs and the phone records from everybody involved in this that night, we do know that this valet was in contact with Sheila E. He sent her a text around 2 something that morning. And we want to know, it's some questions that we want to know about this as well, because Sheila supposedly caught the first thing smoking out of the Bay Area to get to Minneapolis that morning that we found out Prince was dead. And that was on TMZ or some website. You know, somebody caught up with Sheila at the airport. She wanted to go, but we know that somebody at Paisley Park or someone with close to Prince was in contact with her. Now, was it supposedly for this last minute miraculous life-saving intervention that was to take place to get Prince off these opioids? I don't know. I wasn't privy to the phone call. We do know that some very cryptic emails came out of Paisley Park off of Prince's computer around the early morning hours of April 21. Okay. And I don't have them in front of me right now. I will put them on the form. I'm trying to paraphrase now because I'm getting old and I can't think like I used to, but it was some stuff like some weird smiley face type things or whatever. But we do know, based upon what the paramedics said when they got to Paisley Park, that he was in a stage of rigor.
Meaning he had been dead for a while.
He had been dead for a while. They supposedly found Prince dead in the elevator, okay, in the same clothing that he had on the night before. But they found those clothes put on him backwards. The clothes was on the wrong side.
Have you seen the death photos that TMZ released?
I saw that. I had to get. I teach criminal justice. I've had some forensic training. I've had some criminalistics training. I've seen some death scenes. I was used to seeing worse than what I saw with Prince. Something didn't look right. And it looked to me, there's been a lot of speculation about this with the fans. I don't get into their debates because they don't understand that when people, usually when you see they are in a intimate setting, a bedroom, a bathtub, they may be naked, somebody see them dead, they'll try to put their clothes on. So it's nothing unusual for that to have happened. I wish someone would have said, this is what happened. We found him naked, I put his clothes on. I didn't want y'all to see him like this. Which, if they did do it, based upon the pictures that I saw, I'm glad. Because the fact that you saw his death pictures, you saw a picture of Prince dead.
Yeah.
And this man who every time you saw him was immaculate with his clothing, and you disrespect him by printing those pictures like that, but you can't see the death photos of Bin Laden. You can't see those things. Why did you, you're gonna The whole way Prince was treated after his is something extra. There was a level of disrespect. Same thing with Mike. Same thing happened with Mike. You didn't have to disrespect him like you did. Prince, it's a Percocet death. It's a Percocet death. It's a Percocet death. That's all TMZ said. When the reports came out in August that Prince died of a fentanyl overdose, it was like an atomic bomb went off. A silence. Because what happened is that the police found Percocet in the Paisley Park facility. They found Percocet in Prince's personal area. But the Percocet pills that they found were prescribed to Kirk Johnson. They were prescribed to Prince. They tell you, as in the O.J. Simpson, we found a mountain of pills. We found so many pills. When they all probably found maybe bottles of 90-day prescriptions. You know, maybe. So you had probably 200 pills around that if you got them from a mail order situation or got them from a doctor and they had 30 pills or they had 60 pills in there, you understand how prescriptions come like that. And if you have elderly parents or elderly grandparents, you've probably seen those prescriptions come in like that. It was not what I was expecting. Okay? So there were certain things that I was looking for being trained in forensics. And one of the things that they tried to do a real sneaky, disrespectful thing to Mike with in the Prince deal was one of the things that I read in the media said that with Michael Jackson's death, Michael Jackson had multiple aliases with all these prescriptions on them across the country and across the world, etc. But when they tried to go through the database with Prince, they didn't find any prescriptions, medications in his name over the last year. Okay. But what they did find with Prince in his bag that he took to Atlanta, they found a bottle of and one of them was a Bear aspirin bottle, and the other one was an Aleve bottle. And in those two bottles, there were about, one bottle had maybe 30 pills in it, the other one had about 40, 50. Counterfeit Vicodin tablets mixed with regular Vicodin tablets. Vicodin is a hydrocodone type of medication.
Right.
It's
pain reliever.
It's a pain reliever.
It's strong.
It's acetaminophen and an opioid. And when I had a wisdom tooth pulled, that's what the doctor gave me for.
Right.
Okay. But the thing was here is that those pills were counterfeit. We don't know where he got them. We don't know when he got them. We do know that these pills, some of these pills, were broken into halves, and there were a couple that had been broken into fourths. Now, I submit to you, counsel, how many drug addicts do you know that break their pills up?
Not too many.
Okay. So when you get all this addiction stuff, I'm not going to say that he wasn't using any type of pain medication, but to go out and say that he was abusing these drugs or to be that he was an addict It's wrong to say that because he, in those bottles, with this counterfeit Viking that had it's a drug called U-4440, which is a synthetic opioid that's very, very hard to detect in one of them. And he had fentanyl in other ones. And they tell me, I have it wrote down here because it's been floating around on the web today. In his gastric system, in his stomach, he had over 14,000 milligrams of fentanyl.
Wow.
Okay. In his bloodstream, he had 67.8 milligrams in his system, while 3 milligrams is considered fatal. In his liver, 69 milligrams is considered toxic. Prince's liver had over 435 milligrams. When you look at this, a friend of mine in the federal law enforcement system told me that when they found out that Prince had this fentanyl in his system and the levels was that high, it created an alarm that went out worldwide to try to find out where these pills came from. And it even was a concern to them that they thought it may have been even pressed at Paisley Park itself. The DEA went back out to Paisley Park and searched Paisley Park itself. The DEA findings was in, it's also online as well. Here's the problem with Prince's death. Number one, he had 2 bottles of these counterfeit Vicodin tablets, which had the fentanyl and I think it was a lidocaine and this U-444 or whatever, this unknown synthetic opioid. It's very interesting that Prince's doctor that saw him the day before his death brought his findings back, and he didn't have any fentanyl in his system. The deep toxicology report came back and said that was the first time that Prince had used fentanyl. They had showed up no other prior fentanyl usage in Prince's death. And the fact that we got these 2 bottles of mysterious pills that showed up is an indicator to me that something foul happened. And also, with the cover story that came up with how quick TMZ found out about it, how quick they had a video camera at the scene and took pictures. Some people took pictures at the scene at the airport. It's very strange to me that they were able to get in a remote, out-of-the-way place like Moline, Illinois. They had somebody right there at a particular time.
Well, right. Well, put it to you like this: Who owns TMZ?
Oh,
Warner Brothers. Time Warner.
Time Warner.
Okay. Well, Dick Gregory.
Exactly.
Dick Gregory said the same thing. They put the rumor out originally. Remember, I'm glad you bring all this up. Remember, the first thing that they said about Prince was that he was diagnosed with AIDS. And the only problem with that is that if you have AIDS, full-blown AIDS, you can't travel and do 2 one-man shows in Atlanta without being bedridden.
Exactly.
I've known people, my mother who works with the VA at one time, she knew her father's a pharmacist. They know all of these things, these symptoms. So that's not even something shouldn't have even been entertained. But yeah, and then they had the picture of Prince. Remember, they also said Prince had the flu, and he was also riding his bicycle around Paisley Park, and that was even brought up. People question that because if you have the flu, one thing for sure is that you're not able. You got to stay in bed because
Right.
it drains you to move and it can kill you.
Exactly. The flu had killed people that year.
Yeah.
I mean, the flu is no joke, especially when you start getting into your mid-50s. It's several things. A lot of people think that picture was faked. That he sent somebody out riding around on a bike just to throw the public off. Those rumors were quickly, dispelled. And then it was a story about him marching around Walgreens being around him outside of supposedly this Walgreens. But when you see the video from the sheriff's department, that they have the video from inside the Walgreens, it's no video of Prince being inside the Walgreens, period. You see his valet in the Walgreens, but you don't see a picture of Prince, period, in that Walgreens. So a lot of people, and it's a lot of Prince fans out there that don't like what I'm saying. And it's a lot of people that, so well, he wasn't on any drugs. He wasn't doing it. I'm not going to say he was or wasn't. I wasn't there. But what I do know is that the findings, the doctor's report from the day before only said that he was anemic. He was suffering from a severe case of anemia. Now that's what the conclusion of the doctor was, other than the other things. And we know Prince had problems with anemia in the past.
Right.
So how does this end up in this man being dead the next day? And why is it that nobody supposedly was around him, but somebody was using his computer when he had to have been dead a couple of hours when they found him at 9-something that morning? The paramedics say he stopped performing CPR because he was in rigor.
Right.
And people who know the forensics know what rigor mortis is and when it starts. You go into full-blown rigor about 6 hours after you have been dead. So if you go 6 hours, we're going back to at least 3 o'clock in the morning. Who was on his laptop at 3 o'clock and at 5 o'clock and at 7 o'clock in the morning sending out emails to people?
And they never found out who did this.
They never have found out who did it.
Well, I want to tie this into Kurt Cobain, the rocker.
Mm-hmm.
When he died, a private investigator that was looking into his death, the police had ruled it a suicide, but he happened to look at the credit card records, and where Kurt Cobain was supposed to be supposedly dead, his credit card was being used. So they asked the police, well, did you find out who used the credit card? And the police officer said, well, we couldn't find anything as of yet, but we didn't think it was an issue. Well, how the fuck is not an issue? Dead men don't swipe credit cards. And if it wasn't his girlfriend that didn't have it, then that means somebody was in that room when he blew his head off. And I don't think he did it himself. No.
Oh, I don't either. Never believed it.
And honestly, I don't even know. I never listened to his music. I'm not into, rock stuff or anything like that. But, even with James Brown's death is being challenged by members of his family.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're saying now, James Brown, I saw James Brown's son. He said that his father was murdered.
I have no reason to doubt.
Right.
James Brown was 80 years old. Okay, I'm not gonna say he wasn't.
Well, he was 73. Yeah.
But James Brown was up there. I'm not gonna say James wasn't. It was some suspicious stuff that went on with James's wife that died as well, and around there, I'm not gonna doubt that somebody probably did something to James, but with Prince and with Mike, it's a lot of similarities in there.
Right.
Publishing, the fact that one of the last album that Prince released, and Prince released this album, and he was doing it peer to peer. A lot of people missed it. It was called Hit and Run Phase 2.
Right, I have that
And
album.
First song now is what? How many people in the Black Lives Matter movement have died mysteriously?
Too many.
Too many. Too many. And when he released that song, and I heard it, I just shook my head. I shook my head because I knew. I said, Prince, what is? I said, Prince, you flirting. You flirting with him. And I love the song, and I love him for doing it. And it's so much. I got so much inspiration from him, even with him doing a song, even with me knowing with him doing that song. And I don't know if you know this, he did a free concert in Baltimore for Freddie Gray.
Yeah, I remember that.
Those things right there will get you healed. They do not. And going back, I'm not overly suspicious, but I am, because I'm always constantly watching these people, and they've been messing with me for years. When you start coming out and telling the truth and fighting for your folk, you have to expect certain things to happen to you, and they will get you eventually.
Right.
I don't mind it. I don't mind it because I can't say that I'm better than Dr. King, or better than Malcolm, or better than Muhammad Ali, or better than Bill Cosby, because I'm not. But we've got, as black folk, we've got to continue what these people are doing. And we got to create something so strong that when they come out to one of us, they got to come out to all of us. We sit by, our people have gotten quiet, we've gotten complacent. They give us the little crumbs that we have right now. And folks that was really out there, people that was really out there battling for folk and battling for our people, man, have been thoroughly mistreated in land. It is a sin and shame under the sun to see what has happened to Bill Cosby, see what's happened to Michael Jackson, see what's happened to Prince. The main people who was out there, Muhammad Ali. It's some people out there think that they did something to Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, possible.
We've
heard that. I do want to point out though too with James, because he was saying earlier, if you go to YouTube, James's son Daryl explains why he believed his father was murdered, and one of the things he brought up was the fact that in 1965 or 67, between that time, he and Otis Redding were going to start their own black publishing company. They were also going to start, everything was going to be black owned, from the music to who produced the CDs, the records, how the records were made, the plastic that's put on them. That was all going to be black owned. And as you know, Otis Redding died mysteriously in that plane crash, with one Bar-Kays surviving. And James Brown suddenly lost interest in doing it. He stopped. Now, the story that happened and what happened at that hospital, his son Daryl goes into depth in it and can explain it better. But I do want to point that out because it all goes back to something dealing in the music industry. When you go for your intellectual property or you get to the top of the game, your life is in jeopardy now because you're not cooperating with the higher up.
And especially the ones who run the music industry, and who are the people who are now, back in the day, it was one certain ethnic group, and now it's another ethnic group. And that ethnic group is connected to international political figures who have a certain hold over certain American political figures, and you start getting this real intrigue developed. Because one of the things that I found interesting was that fentanyl, historically, a lot of people don't know this, fentanyl was a Russian assassination tool. They were hitting people with fentanyl a long time ago, and people would think people would die of heart attacks, and they actually were fentanyl poisonous. So, what happened to Prince? It was a big debate, and there's still a big debate going on the Facebook and some certain Prince pages that wait, was it a suicide? They want to blame the chef for it, and he put this in and gave Prince some type of smoothie or whatever, and that's what killed Prince. But when you look at the forensics of what I've done and looked at the forensics and listened to all this medical evidence, he didn't have anything. They saw, and a doctor, a forensic pathologist, my best friend is a forensics pathologist. They can look in your stomach when they cut your stomach open to death and find out what you died from and see the residue in your stomach because it's still in there. So we think that a lot of people that I know that know about certain overdoses and things of that nature, when they do autopsy, that they saw that in his stomach, that fentanyl was that powerful, where that one of those pills didn't even dissolve,
Right.
and it killed him. So that's something.
Wow.
That they have not seen the level of fentanyl in his system that have a number of those readings I just read off to you in any other fentanyl death. It was almost like someone intentionally, and what I believe was because I found out here recently that all the pills in the bottle were not counterfeit. It was some legitimate pills mixed in there. And one of those pills, he took the right pill at that time, and it sent him away from here. And it was intentional. Someone killed him. Now, let me also go into some things that you just mentioned about properties, intellectual properties. One of the reasons why I think Prince went back to Warner Brothers is because they were holding, a lot of people know about this vault that Prince had and all this music he had in it. Well, they were holding over his head that the music that he created from the time he was under the Warner Brothers contract, even though it wasn't released, was still intellectual property of Warner Brothers. Now that is deep.
Yeah, well,
And
Dr. Umar Johnson said that Prince has enough music in his vault to last 100 years.
yeah, they can release a 10 album or a 12 album song album every year for the next 100 years off of what we had in the vault. They are releasing things right now, and it's an album coming out here in about another month or two called Originals, and it's which somebody sent to me probably in 2016, right after his death. The same stuff that's going to be released, they sent that to me. Now, how did I get this? These songs, and all of a sudden, they just happen to be the songs that's going to be on this album. I thought that was very interesting. Where did they get them from? And then you get the fact he had new music that he was working on. Matter of fact, there's an album right now that I want to hear. It's called Black is the New Black. And Prince had been recording this album, and it was supposed to be like a jazz fusion album that he was working on with some jazz musicians. And it's in the can. It's finished. And certain people say, "Oh, that album's not finished," and you'll probably never get to hear it. But you're releasing things. Warner Brothers released an album called Prince and a Microphone, which was a Prince bootleg from back in 1983 that I had probably in 1990 in the same quality. And they re-released it. Oh, you got to hear this. But they didn't release the last concert that he did, or the concert that he did in Australia that everyone was raving about, which was the actual, and those concerts were recorded. So why would you not release this and you go back and release an album? And it's really mysterious things that a lot of the fans are asking questions about, and that you're not hearing from some of the people on the internet that want to so-called proclaim themselves Princeologists, like you call me, or they're fans or friends of Prince's, and they getting this exclusive information because they want all these hits on YouTube and stuff. I want to see, why come you don't release this, but you can release that? But I want to go. I get off topic here. Let me say something about the album that he's getting into, and I'm getting folks looking at me crazy right now because I'm in the car. So I'm gonna get off here after I make this point.
Yeah, sure.
This and I got to be careful here because of legalities. There were certain people in Prince's circle, and Prince was trying to do some charitable things, and we come to find out about those things after his death, okay? Which are noble, and we know Prince was doing these things. We've been knowing Prince was doing these things secretly. However, when we start digging into some of these issues, and it goes back to what you asked me at the beginning about the estate and about all this money that's owed, we have now found out or surmised that there was some financial hanky-panky going on with some of these people who was advising Prince and his actual business dealings, which then also makes his death become very suspicious.
Right.
And I wished I could go into this further, but because of legalities, I'm not. And we do know, and the last thing I'm going to mention to you is, before I get off here, and I'll take a couple more minutes of questions from you. But one of the very interesting things, Gavin, that we found out by researching this is that his Universal Music was changed, and it was supposedly going back to someone who was supposed to have been a manager of his. And once I saw that, I got to be very suspicious, because Universal Publishing, even though there's a lot of people that don't like them and they rip off artists, etc., they are the best music publishing firm that an artist can get for getting their royalties. But yet we got Prince off of that contract and had the money funneled to you. And we don't know what was going on there eventually as well. So it was some things going on that I imagine that will come out in the next couple of years in regards to his publishing and where those monies were going, with monies that were supposed to be going into certain charities, but they were going. There's some very interesting things out there, and I hope I'm wrong about this. I hope that my suspicions are not what they are, but I do believe that there was something foul about his death, and that it was intentional.
Yeah. Well, you're not alone in thinking that. I've felt the same way. A lot of people feel that way, even with Michael. You know, just the idea, with all of that happening that he had going on. When you look at Michael and what the doctor, if you're getting ready to do 51-man shows, you think about it. The company AEG would not have thrown all of that money into Michael's show, especially if they thought he was doing drugs, because how could he perform?
Exactly.
How would they, and if he's doing physicals all the time, obviously they have to have a doctor check up on him for real. They would have seen the stuff that he was putting in his body. Now, what I truly think happened was I think he was taken out for his music publishing. And,
Exactly.
I think that because now, and it's very interesting you bringing this up, Prince's music is now owned by Sony.
Yes.
And Sony
Yes.
recently, as of I believe it was last year or it might have been in 2017, they finally got the rights to Michael Jackson's his ATV publishing, his interest, as well
Mm-hmm.
as his other music publishing, My Jack. My Jack was
Yes.
Michael's. That was for his music, meaning the songs that he wrote, the
Yes.
music that he sung. Whereas Sony ATV was the Beatles and some of Elvis's music, Little Richard and Sly Stone and Ray Charles and a few other folks. In fact, I learned this. Did you know that Michael owns Santa Claus is Coming to Town? Part of
Yes.
that song is his. You know how much money Santa is worth?
Tell me.
Well, I can't even say it's. Let's just put it this way: the kids to the original songwriters are in court fighting for $1 million over back royalties.
Wow.
They had to fight EMI, and not to mention also he owns Chestnuts roasting on an open fire,
The Christmas song.
the
Yeah,
Christmas
wasn't that?
song. And yeah, Christmas songs are extremely lucrative, and they're actually the biggest selling single of all time. Do you know which one it was?
I have no idea. It's, rocking around a Christmas tree.
No, the biggest selling song of all time is "White
White Christmas.
Christmas." By
Yeah, by Bing Crosby.
It's sold over 50 million singles worldwide. Now,
Wow.
that's just Bing Crosby's version of the song. That doesn't include
Right.
the Supremes version or Mel Torme's version or Michael Bolton or whoever, the
Right.
Temptations. So Irving Berlin, who was Jewish, and matter of fact, most Christmas songs, the most popular, were written by Jews. Why I don't know, but they were just that talented back then. They Irving Berlin wrote that, and it's extremely lucrative, and they're played routinely everywhere around the country. So when you own a song like that, publishing and getting back on track, it puts you in a position of power. Uh,
Exactly.
and Michael, my understanding also, he was trying to buy Marvel Comics back in the
Ooh.
90s. If you remember, he was meeting with Stan Lee,
Right.
and yeah, with Stan Lee, and they tried to do things, and that was when the first accusations started coming. And then you got the property at Neverland. My understanding
Right.
is they got oil underneath it. There's also we're trying to use that for real estate development at one point, which is why Tom Sneddon was opposed to Michael moving into the Santa Monica area. So
Wow.
it's a lot of dirty shit, man.
When you dig in deep enough into it, you always find out that it's some of the quote unquote black man moving into the quote unquote white man's territory, and they're not liking it, and it, it's sick. It's a sick thing that we're dealing with. But you know, last thing, one of the things I want everybody to remember is about both of these guys is that we've got to continue to tell their story. We've got to control the narrative about what happened to them and not let the narrative be told that, oh, these were drug addicts. This is just another a drug addicted rock star death. You know, we talk about Michael being so weird. I'm gonna tell y'all a story about Mike. Um, I didn't really put 2 plus 2 together with Mike's death and with the stuff that they were doing to him until he died. And I was watching his funeral, and all of a sudden it hit me with COINTELPRO. And I was watching his funeral, and I just started crying because I wish that I would have thought about that while he was still living. You know, they got Prince. They kept him from getting big. They kept him from getting on the same level. You know, as far as keeping his music from getting that popular. But with Mike, you know, you could really tell. I was just sitting there watching it, and it really hurt me that they did him like they did, because like I said, this man didn't try to do nothing but help people. I try to use his talent to make the world a better place, and yet we him by doing what he did. It's typical American mess.
Man,
typical.
Yeah, Garland, I don't really have too many more questions to ask you because we've covered a broad thing, and you've been here for 2 hours with me. You know, first off, let me apologize about moving the time back up because I've been so busy with work, and you know, I didn't think I would have enough time to prepare and get everything going. But I thank you and appreciate you still taking the time to do this with me. And you know, we got only 3 people watching in the chat room, including me.
Well, hopefully whoever's watching in the
but
chat
we'll get
room,
more people.
I hope we, you know, I educated some people on some things, and you know, again, you know, I invite people to contact me or to go online and look at this stuff for themselves, because what you're told in the media is not the true story. And we see this time and time again with a lot of different things, especially Dr. Cosby, R. Kelly thing, which I hadn't really been into, but I found out there's a lot more to that than what's being told. We just got to keep abreast of what's going on. And you, Nicole, Harvey, I follow you guys all the time, and I really appreciate the fact that you guys are out there, and you guys are becoming the black media.
Thank you.
And you guys have to continue, and hopefully I can support you in whatever way I wanted. I try to get you guys, because a lot of folks my age, you know, don't know that you guys are out there. And I say, hey, you guys need to be on YouTube and follow some of these people, because the word is getting out, and what you're hearing on TV is not necessarily the truth about what's going on in reality. And
right.
So hopefully I'm getting your name out there, and you guys can continue doing what you guys are doing.
Well, it's about, yeah, it's not just the name, it's about the information, man. And we thank you for this. The new black media, you know, regardless of what Roly-Poly Martin says, this is new black media.
Exactly.
You know, and he's on YouTube himself, so.
Now.
I don't like it. I don't like the guy.
Well, he's on TV for a reason. He's not on TV to educate people. He's on TV to placate people.
Yeah.
To make you think.
Well, I mean, he's
not.
Right. Well, I mean, I've met him before and I wasn't impressed, so I'll just leave it at that. You know, he comes across. I mean, it's evident he can come across real arrogant.
Right.
You know, it is evident he is arrogant, but you know, he had a platform on TV One. You know, obviously they've got rid of him, and now they brought D.L. Hughley in. Although I don't think D.L. was brought in to replace. I don't think he was brought in to replace Roland. He does, you know, the night program. I think I remember when TV One had Michael Baisden, which I thought was a pretty good program. You know, we really need another black late night talk show. Something along those lines that the brothers could sit down and talk, and you know, that was great programming. But what happens is they come up with things where they can't support it, whether the costs are too high, which is what they try to say with Roland's show. But truthfully and honestly, I think part of it had to deal with the way he treated Umar Johnson. I think a lot of people stopped watching him because of that. But yeah, cost could have been high too. But I'm not gonna. This ain't about him, so I'm not gonna even focus my energy on it. But I did a video last week, this couple of weeks last week about the Motown 60
Right.
show, and I said it was a joke, and I had people. Some guy was commenting. He tries to go back and forth with me about, well, you underestimate what Diana Ross did, and this wasn't about Michael Jackson. You don't know nothing about Motown and all of this stuff. Well, I said, bottom line is they didn't mention Michael Jackson because of that Neverland documentary, and Michael and his brothers did a lot for put a lot of money in Barry Gordy's pockets.
Exactly. Saved them.
Well, yeah, they were the last group to really come out of Detroit when it was Motown was actually at Detroit. That last few
Right.
years when Barry was getting ready to move to Los Angeles, he those guys really kept Motown alive. Just like in the '80s, Rick James kept Motown alive.
Right.
Rick James and Tina Marie, you know, they had Smokey Robinson really, he was off and on.
Right.
I know he had his drug problems, and I knew Marvin had left. Well, Stevie Wonder kept him alive too. I shouldn't just say I forgot about Stevie. Yeah, because did you know that Stevie Wonder's attorneys? I read this. His attorney, who's deceased, actually gets credited for every song Stevie Wonder has written, even though he didn't have a damn thing to do with the song.
Wow. I didn't know that.
I read about that. Now I think
Wow.
Stevie may have gotten rid of it, but
Mm-hmm.
his family, that attorney's family, was getting paid from Stevie Wonder's music.
Wow. Man, these people, man, the music, man, is the biggest. It's almost like a giant vampire. It just it's incredible that after.
Yeah. Well, the music industry functions like any other
Story
institution.
after.
Wait, Garland, you're breaking up. Can you hear me?
Here.
Yeah, hello?
Yeah, I can
Okay,
kind
yeah.
of fade it out for a minute.
Yeah. Well, finish your last point. You wanted to say, finish any last statement that you have, man.
Let me get on and to educate people, and I'm still continuing to listen to any ideas about this. It's a lot of folks. Believe it or not, there are a lot of people that were connected to Prince that have reached out to me, and they have told me that they felt similar to what was actually going on. Uh, I have been contacted by at least 15 people who either played with him or were friends with him, and about certain things. And the only thing I can give them are theories and things to look for. But I appreciate their concern, and anyway, I made a vow that I was going to make sure that people were going to know who Prince was. His music, I'm going to do what I can for the rest of my lifespan to make sure that Prince's music is heard. And we've got to continue, not only with Mike, with Prince and all these other people, because listen to your music now. Our music has died. And to quote scripture, uh, even though I don't really want to get that deep, but to quote scripture, we were a soul people at one time in American history and Black history. And the Bible said, what do it profit a man to gain the world and lose his soul? And Black people need to be asking themselves the question, if we actually gained if we've lost our soul? because our soul is gone.
Right. Definitely, music is the second largest import from the United States, I think, after drugs. And African Americans, Black Americans have played the most pivotal role in being ambassadors of music. And this is what I talked about last week. When you have a black record company like a Motown, don't you think it would have been important during Black History Month that
Hmm.
black artists were the ones that did a Motown tribute?
Hmm.
That's not to say that whites can't listen to the music. Obviously, if they didn't listen to the music, it wouldn't be a success that it was because, yeah, majority of whites were buy more R&B and rap music because there are more whites in the country.
Right.
There are more whites than blacks. That's why. So that's not a surprise that that happened. But that was my whole take with that issue. And we got to if we don't control the narrative, if we don't control the medium, then we will never control the story. And we don't control the minds of the people because our enemies control them because they have access to the media. Uh,
Yes.
that's why Farrakhan got banned from Facebook.
Yes.
That's why, uh, all of these little other white supremacists are able to post different shit that I've seen. I first and
Yes.
foremost, I have not seen anything really from Minister Farrakhan relating to, any post against Jews or whites or anything on Facebook. All of that was from the 80s that he talked about. What I have
Right.
seen, I've seen fighting. I've seen him post pictures of
Yes.
men beating up women. I've seen bloody stuff.
Yes.
Why are those people not banned?
Yes.
Why do
And
what? What?
and, and, and since that happened, Gavin, and believe it or not, it's that I've had banned
Yeah.
Facebook since that happened. And it had nothing to do with foolishness. It was a comment I made. I'm like, wow,
Well,
okay, we're going to do this now.
we need to. Honestly, I think this is the time, and I've said this in my previous video yesterday that I posted. Uh, Please, people, check it out. That we're gonna have to get. We're gonna have to do not just another. We're not gonna just need another social media network. We're gonna need a medium. You're gonna need.
Yes.
We need a television station. There's a black man, a congressman. He was a Republican named J.C. Watts. Now, say what you want about black Republicans, but he helped create a black news network recently that just launched with scholarships that he's giving to kids at FAMU. So
Right.
I'm willing to at least be open minded and see what he has. It's a black news network. If it reports our stories, if it gives us a platform that you're not going to get on CNN unless you're gay or lesbian or you're pro-abortion or you're pro-Democrat, and vice versa. And I'm gonna say the same thing about Fox. If you're up there cooning
Right.
and skinning and grinning, basically they got coons on both sides of the Democratic Party and the Republican. I,
Yeah, that's
I
true.
you know, that girl Sanders, that looked like Magic Johnson's son, that's that's running,
Yeah.
handling Joe Biden's campaign. I wouldn't want anything to do with her. I don't know why people were happy she got
Yeah.
a job because she used her platform to bash black men a few months back. So I don't give a damn about her.
Hmm. Right. Right. I'm through with them people. And you throw Oprah Winfrey in there too.
Okra.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I know people that knew her. And if these people came out and started talking about her, I'm surprised that they haven't gotten up there on her the way Nashville, Big Nan, knows her. Give respect to her father that a lot of people didn't say anything about Oprah, but because her father is one of the great people of black people of Nashville, a man that had respect before she even now became famous. But I've heard story after story after story about this woman. And when you hear Target uh, talk about her in Chicago, there are just as many stories out of Nashville about her that really hadn't got out there, and they protected her with that. And I think a lot of people didn't want to go out there and after her because she was black. And we don't do that to each other in public, when we should. But she's, this thing that she just recently pulled here with Mike, and then they're leaving Neverland, her and Gayle King, and man, these people, man, I can't deal with you no more. And I hope it put her. And I hate to say that about her. I hate to say that about her, but coming from Tennessee State University, which is for Tennessee State, which is outside of $100,000 scholarship that she gave 32 years ago. She could have stayed Tennessee State with a phone call. She didn't even have to give money. All she had to do was say, "Hey, I need you to do this. Could you do this for me? I'm Oprah Winfrey." Her name by itself carries weight, and she's never
on the phone. Sorry. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Well.
Anyway.
Yeah, Roger. Well, you know the guy. Yeah, I gotta get off. But yeah, Oprah is she showed her true colors. I've always known stuff about her after the way she treated Ice Cube. When Ice Cube had that show Black or White, and she invited all of the contestants, but wouldn't invite him, and how she treated Ludacris. So she's always had a thing for black men. But Garland, thank you for your time. Where can people? First off, where can they get this information on Prince, and how can they contact you if you have contact info?
Anybody that wants to get in contact with me, I suggest that you go through Messenger.
Okay. Hello?
Send me people who need it.
Hello?
And because of legality, don't want to go in and slam anybody, and it's still open and it's closed. If something came up tomorrow, so it's still to me an active investigation. But yeah, if anybody contact me, I'm gonna message
me. Yeah. All right, Garland, I appreciate it, man. I gotta get up in the morning and get some rest. So, but I really appreciate your time, man. We are gonna do this again. Obviously, I'm sure Nicole will also have another platform to bring us on, and I'm gonna keep doing stuff like this because people need to hear this information. So, Prince was one of our brothers. Michael was our brother. The things that they did, and they really left a lasting impression on pop culture and on the world. And anything that brings out any justice to this, or that will resolve, any pain or suffering that the family, that their friends, that their fans are going through, I think it's good. So, yeah. All right, Garland. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Good night, Thank you for coming. Anytime.
Yeah. All right, my man. Anytime you need me, let me know.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Yes, sir.
Bye-bye. And that was it for me, guys. This was another episode of Gavin Richard Presents. We did 2.5 hours, and he didn't have to do that. I know it was long. I was a little tired myself from this morning, but we made it. So, guys, you enjoy your rest of your weekend, okay? Peace.